right.
I'm a pen enjoyer, an enthusiast.
This will be fun. Hey, chat. We have a little bet going about our audio levels. So before we kick off the actual show here, if anybody's around, let us know how we sound. In particular, do I sound really quiet compared to my compatriots? So
Yeah.
we won't shortchange your intro, but
Spoiler alert, I think JT sounds really quiet, and so if you guys say that, I'll win the bet.
but if they lie, it's to the detriment of the stream. That's
Listening to the stream back, I am way louder than you, JT.
really. Hmm. I don't know. I don't know. I'll dial
Yeah,
you
it's kind
guys.
of blowing out my ears a little bit.
All right,
You're
dialing
blowing
you
your
guys.
your own
I'm,
voice is blowing yours out.
yeah, that's right.
There you go. Well,
Man,
so it's your fault.
still.
Yeah, I'm louder than both you and Quick Draw.
Hmm.
I can't solve that though. Oh,
No.
You
actually,
could
hold on.
you
I could.
could don't unplug your mic. Remember that.
We could restart the Zencaster, I suppose. At this point, we're in we're
But
in
then
go.
we'll miss all the secret behind the scenes talk that goes into the Patreon exclusive episodes.
That's true. That's true. Um, I don't know. Tell us, yeah, if there's anybody in the chat, let us know if your ears are bleeding.
Apparently, no one watches this show.
They are all lying on the floor, holding their ears. Oh man, that's funny. Well, while
I
they're
think I think maybe just my audio is I think yeah I think you and Quick Draw sound a little fairly uneven, and then I might just be the loud one odd one out. Oh
I've
no, actually I'm fine. I think I'm fine now.
I dialed you both down to like a third of what you were at
All
before on
right,
OBS.
Yeah,
go with,
I think we're doing better.
Cool.
let's roll
And
with it.
and while we're in the pre stuff, like I got some sweet pens going here too. I don't know if you're a big pen nerd, but pen fan. We'll have to roll out the pen collection.
Yeah. I've got three fountain pens. I've got
I
this cheap, super cheap
Mm-hmm.
one that I actually really like. I've got this nice one I actually recently got from Art Fest. It's hand turned spalted maple
Cool.
wow.
with a magnetic cap,
Fancy.
and
I'm
then
pretty sure every pen I own is from a former employer.
and then I
Every
have this one as well, which is like a nice. I mean, none of them are super expensive. Like this one, these are actually the same brand, but this one was $7.
yeah.
This one was like 30 USD. This one was like 50 though.
Yeah. I think so. The favorite one that I'm working
So
with right now is this Twisby one. It's kind of a special edition one. I think it was in the 50 range, something like that. But I had one that I got as a gift. It was a very spicy pen. It was I don't remember exactly how much it cost, but it was more than I would spend on a pen, very likely. And there was one Halloween where my daughter was a witch and didn't have a magic wand, and this pen like looked really cool. Like it had this really
uh
neat
oh.
like spiraling ink effect on the inside. And I was like, just carry this one around, wave it around. It'll be great. Got home at the end of the night. Where's my pen? Crickets.
Yep,
Crickets.
I
Yep.
see that coming.
Yeah, I can see that come from a mile away.
Yeah.
As soon as you said you gave it to your child.
I mean,
Yep, it's gone.
I knew it was coming when we started, but I hoped, and
You hoped and prayed.
I hoped and prayed, and it didn't happen. But anyway, let's jump on in. So we'll say
All right.
we'll do the thing. We'll do the thing. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sloppy Lab. I'm JT Russell, and with me tonight is the man who's always 3 minutes early to his 35 o'clock appointments. That's Quick Draw 3457. Hello, Quick Draw. How are you?
Good evening, JT. I'm good. I am back from an extremely long Keyforge vacation. Believe it or not, I haven't played Keyforge in 3 days, which is probably close to a record for any Keyforge player. So I'm itching to play. It's just been too long. You guys have probably never taken 3 days off, right?
Well, we'll see. I don't know who else we have in the lab tonight. We have a special guest. Maybe they've been on a hiatus or not.
We do. So we have Murph in the house tonight to help us talk about what else but KAGI and adaptive and probably Dark Tidings. Murph, how are you tonight?
I am doing very well. Thank you two for having me on. On Keyforge Hexes, yes, actually, this past weekend I was on a four. 5-day Keyforge
Oh,
hiatus. So I mean, I had to like sneak. I couldn't play any Keyforge. I had to sneak into the KAGI server to like tell people to get their games in
Mm-hmm.
and sort of finish out the league, but more or less on a Keyforge hiatus.
and I thought I had a world record here, and you just like already beat
Yeah,
me.
I'm sorry. I mean, some people. I mean, FFG I think has the must have the longest Keyforge hiatus, right?
Uh, it's still too soon.
It's
I'm
still
sorry.
I
I'm
it's
sorry.
well, I mean, this is the theme, I guess. I am also recently back from a vacation. You all remember my very fun I don't know setup last week probably, but I had to check my sheet where I track games, and there's a jump from 728 to 86 where there were no games recorded on my sheet. So
Yeah,
oofa
that's the
doofa.
summer. But
I
you
Okay,
did
thought
not
I
miss
thought
the
those were all
show.
just losses.
they might have been.
You just stopped recording for a week. Couldn't figure out how to win again. Um, so this is episode 51, which if we have done one a week, which has been roughly, we are approaching a year. And JT, despite you talking about your vacation and your setup last week with ST Russell, you haven't missed a show in a whole year.
I haven't missed a show, and I you know gotta make the next one, right? That would be a shame.
That would be
Restart the
a big
count.
shame.
Uh, uh, but I was yeah made it to 50 though. Made it to 50 though. Before swapping out the hot seat, I guess. So almost 50, 49, but
It is it's a very impressive run. I think
Yeah,
both of you should be very proud. Specifically, JT should be very proud.
especially JT. Yeah, I mean I am just along for the ride mostly. Last week was the first time in probably like 47 weeks that I have actually done anything technical with regards to this show. So, um, yeah,
the trap is you do the setup, and then everybody looks at their shoes when it comes time to learn how to do the things. So you got to go on a
and
vacation, forced learning.
I am not afraid to admit that I'm just going to look away. In fact, I was very close this evening to saying, "Hey JT, are you if you're busy like getting other stuff ready, I'll run the show tonight." And I was like, "No, I don't want to do that." And I'm not hiding from that. It's too much pressure for me.
I don't blame you at all. In fact, I would think less of you if you
I mean,
didn't.
it wouldn't be this. It wouldn't be a sloppy lab work show without that, right?
That's true. That's true. Well, this is going to be a fun conversation. We are fresh off the U.S. Nationals, so naturally we're talking about adapting.
Talking about the format that they should have played last weekend.
That's right. Swiss adaptive, best of one.
Swiss adaptive best of three. Oof. The only way to make the
No, best
weekends
of
longer,
one.
make them longer. But in seriousness, though, congrats to the folks who placed well. It was cool to see some of the decks that showed up and see the evolving WoW impact, I suppose, with another day to put in the books. Um, we'll see how it impacts the KAGI League next season too. I suppose that'll be interesting. Um,
Yeah, and I think sort of how Top Cut is gonna roll out and like sort of the timeline on that, and then sort of around like having a little bit of break in between, a lot of people settle in back to school and all that kind of stuff.
mhm.
Well, I think we'll probably be looking at around starting around a little bit after Europe and beyond starts getting retail and their pledges.
Yeah.
So hopefully, the accessibility of WoW will be in such a state where I think I'm comfortable to let into the league.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was wondering about that with like when Europe and the rest of the world was going to get it and if it was going to be legal in KAGI 9.0. So I guess it probably depends on when it finally arrives and when we kick it back up, when you kick it back up for next season.
Yeah, it might not be legal to KAGI 9.3,
Right.
but we'll see. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll see. Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of data to get through tonight because we have you on this week, Murph, because we want to look at a lot of the data that you've gathered over the last two CAGI seasons and largely about what sets have been played, what the results have been 2-0 or 2-1, the SAS of the decks involved. And so um, data is getting a little bit better after two seasons. We have almost 150 games recorded, so we can try to take some data from that and try to see if there's any trends, any specific sets that are better, anything noteworthy to talk about with regards to the SAS values of decks being played and decks that are winning, things like that. And you guys have both put together a lot of very beautiful charts through sheets here that we're going to look through and maybe answer some questions from the chat if there's any specific information and data you're looking for. But this is going to be fun. It's very interesting to dig into this data about adaptive and kind of see what trends there are, what people are playing, and what people enjoy doing with this format.
Absolutely. And I know I'll sort of address it at the top of the show because I know there was some questions about it in the KAGI Discord. Sort of some, not necessarily player specific data analysis, but maybe player group data analysis. And I did refrain from doing that. I think one of the things that I really want to respect data privacy here, and I have to come into contact as a TO to handle the data and input it and stuff like that. But I think because I'm also a player, it feels a little wrong for me personally to sort of take that, look at some of the most competitive players in the league, and analyze their behaviors, sort of like with nameplates attached. So I think I refrain from doing that just on my own sort of moral and ethical feelings about that specifically. So we're not going to be covering any sort of like top cut player specific data or anything around that. So I think that sort of gets into too sort of too much specificity
So,
about what
so
we're
wait a minute.
analyzing.
How did you know that I only play Dark Tidings then?
Because you shouted it to the heavens, Quick Draw.
That's correct. You are right.
Mm-hmm. So we're not going to get into how the Polish and French players only play AOA and the Korean players enjoy Dark Tidings.
That's unfortunately not.
Okay,
Unfortunately not.
we'll leave that.
Yeah.
We'll leave that aside then. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit more than
If people wanna go and ask specific players, and, look at the publicly available information about play, that they're more than welcome to.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, tell us a little bit more about. I mean, briefly about the league structure as it relates to the data, and also kind of the way that it was collected, if you would, Murph.
Yeah, absolutely. So the KAGI League has always been has always been broken up into pods. The pods are more or less time zone region based. So I try and match people based on time zone, but the league has two phases: a pod phase, a top cut phase. In the pod phase, people are split into pods of 6 to 8 players typically, and then they have a designated time span to play one Archon Adaptive Best of 3 match against each player in their pod in a round robin format. So you have to play against each player in your pod once. At the end of the pod phase, the top players from each pod will then face off. They'll move on to the top cut, and they move on to a single elimination playoff bracket where they compete to be KAGI champion, which we have won ourselves on this very podcast. But that's sort of how the league is structured. Pods of 6 to 8 players. They play a round robin, and it's one adaptive best of 3 match for each player. So at the end of every match, the winner is to report who wins and who losses. So me as a tournament organizer, I can go into the pod sheet and say who won, who lost, all that kind of stuff. In KAGI 7, I sort of, I took it as a bit of an effort to go and start collecting some data, because one of the things that adaptive as a format has been missing has been any real sort of hard data around it. There's been lots of discussion, there's been articles written about it. I have come on this very podcast and we've had discussion about DT in adaptive and adaptive as a format and some ideas surrounding it. But again, all of those, it's all been anecdotal more or less and theory crafting, but what we didn't have was hard numbers, which now we have. And so what I did was in the match report sheet, the winner had the option. Every single piece of data collection was optional. You could report it or you could choose not to. The sheet asked, what pod were you in, the names of the two players, and then it basically asked you, did you win? Would the game end in a 2-0, 2-1, or a forfeit or concession?
Mm-hmm.
And then past that, the form would branch into two different pieces. So if you selected 2-0 or forfeit or concession, basically it was, I guess, 3 sections. If you clicked forfeit or concession, the form ended. If you clicked 2-0, it went to the 2-0 section. So you reported the set of the winner's deck, the SAS of the winner's deck, and then vice versa for the loser's deck. and the winner in the winner's deck is the one who won the first game, and they won the second game with the other person's deck. So it's the person who won is the perspective we're taking on ownership, not the deck's perspective. It's important to note because something that can get confusing. We're talking about adaptive. Um, in the 2-1 section, that branches even further. That gives you options to report how many chains were bid in game 3. I think that was the one piece of data collection that was mandatory. So basically, how many chains were bid, and then it asks you the exact same questions on SAS and set, and then it asks you another question, or asks you two more questions. It asks you, did the winner of the match play their own deck? And then did the winner of the did the winner's deck win the previous 2 games? Which was sort of maybe a subtle, maybe not so subtle way, but trying to ask some pointed questions to try and tease out, did the player who was chained in the 3rd game win? Did they do that with their own deck, or did they do that with their opponent's deck? So some ways there to try and tease out a little bit more information without getting sort of too specific, and a little bit more general for player reports.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the way
Um,
to sum it up, I would say, is we're looking at whether or not it was a 2-0 or a 2-1. We're looking at what sets were involved. We're looking at the SAS value of the decks, and we're looking at the chains bid. This is really like the high level
yeah,
points that we're looking at
that's the
in this
meat and potatoes
conversation.
of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so there is quite a lot. So I think for season 7, when you first got it, there was what does it look like? Like 56 games reported, something like that.
Something around
Um,
there. Yeah, I think it was around
and
20. It was 20 something players in season 7. So yeah, that sounds about right.
yeah, and so for season 8, we've had more players. We have more data this time around. Almost 100 games this season reported. So the data is getting, you know, pretty nice. So we can kind of pull more from it. I think last year you guys did this episode. I wasn't able to be there for that, but there's a lot of kind of outliers involved, and things that are skewed. And I think we're getting to a point now with 150 games where it's starting to, settle a little bit, and we're able to see some trends, hopefully, from season to season, and overall across the 2 seasons, especially.
Yeah, I know last season JT and I had talked about it, and we sort of didn't really do this sort of in-depth episode. And I think much to actually talk is chagrin, but we didn't really do this sort of episode mostly because of the sort of that many games last season was kind of it produced a lot of areas where didn't really feel statistically relevant for a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
data points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
there's one other kind of point that I want to make sure we say before we move on too much. With the league structure, you can bring a different deck each match if you want to, right? So that's very very important when you're talking about things like the meta as it's reflected by set preference or SAS range preference, right? It's not like folks signed up and then we're stuck with whatever deck they signed up with. There was kind of like a convergence effect that could potentially happen, or folks could choose to ignore what other folks are bringing. So that's interesting and very relevant, and maybe I think lends a little bit to some of the trends. Lends some credence maybe to some of the trends that we'll see, or at least suggest that folks were willfully ignoring them.
yeah,
Yeah.
one other
Absolutely.
asterisk I want to bring up here is that I think it was around mid-season. I don't remember the exact date. There was a DOK update that updated a lot of the SAS scores. So we are going to see. I would not put much stock in the SAS value of decks being chosen, because you're going to have some that were before that update, some that were after. But I do think what's still relevant is the some of the SAS discrepancies between the two decks. I think that's still pretty uniform. Where, like, a lot of decks, as people might already know, like their decks went down like 5, 7, maybe even 10 points, and so a lot of things went down. And so while we might see a lower overall SAS in the second half of the season, we don't have a way to kind of split that out. But I do think that the SAS difference in games is going to be roughly the same. It's not going to be perfect, but if there was like a pre-SAS update, if they were like 7 point difference or a 10 point difference, post SAS update, they're probably going to be pretty close to that. So I do think that there's still some value in the data we have if you look specifically at the SAS differences in the decks played.
I think it's also relevant, and I know, I mean, I sort of mentioned this on another video that I did, but it's also important to use the data people were looking at the time. Well, obviously, at post update, the update was July 16th, so sort of like 3/4 of the way through the season.
Hmm.
Um, so definitely, it's important to look there. But when people were making decisions for majority of the league, and like people already had decks they sort of wanted to play, probably by the last 2 weeks. Um, I think that SAS is still very relevant for the decisions people were making at the time in that environment.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, whether or not you believe, well, folks may want to stick with the decks that they were playing with, but whether or not you believe that SAS is a great reflection of your deck strength or not, I think it's hard to argue that it doesn't impact the psychology of players selecting decks. And if you believe that there is a sweet spot range for deck viability in adaptive, to give you a chance for a 2-0 or even just to have fun games, that's going to maybe weigh into your decision making. Whether you want to admit it or not, I'll admit that it probably does for me on some level. Maybe more than I'd like to admit, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I think it certainly plays an impact for me. I mean, I always have in my head a range in which I typically assess range to try and sort of look at adaptive decks in
Yeah,
beyond sort of like beyond my own personal play experience, but certainly I have an idea that I recommend adaptive decks to be in.
I'd like to think that I have a range of deck strength in mind that roughly correlates to SAS range, and that's how I convince myself that I'm not not totally influenced by the big number. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's more where I am. I'm looking more at deck strength and something that I feel like I can beat in a game two, but also something that I can win with in a game one. But you're right, that often does correlate to SAS, not always. But for these reasons, because of the subjectivity of SAS, and you could have a 75 SAS deck that is just not a very good deck, and you bring it for that specific reason because people might think it's a little bit better than it is. But for these reasons specifically, I'm very interested in the cross set data that
Hmm.
we might have available to us, because I do think that it's kind of interesting to see like what sets people are bringing and whether or not they are succeeding with or against those sets. And maybe we might see some trends. And this is not a teaser because I just genuinely don't know, but maybe we'll see that some sets are not doing very well versus other specific sets. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm really interested in seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
well, let's jump in. I mean, do we want to head right to kind of some set breakdowns or maybe some higher level stuff? I'm actually kind of curious. I can pose some of these as questions to you all to get your takes. I know you probably have taken a glance at some of the data, but maybe you can put on your hat of innocence and answer from a feigned state of naivety, right? But yeah, the first thing that I was curious about, right, was the split between 2-0 and 2-1 results. Like, how often did matches go to 3 games, right? Uh, I don't know. Did you all have a guesses on this going in, or we're just kind of like no idea?
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, I guess I've been collecting the data, I'm keeping a close eye on it. But when I started going in, when I sort of went into the data collection, I was expecting about a 2-1 split for 2-1 games. So I was
mhm.
expecting probably two thirds of all the games to be 2-1s.
I would have expected well more than half as well. I would have been in the same place as you, Murph. But that's not what we saw here, is it?
It's not. We saw a pretty much even split across both seasons. So it came out to nearly 50-50. So 77 2-0 results, 75 2-1 results. And in season 7, there were almost twice as many 2-0s as there were 2-1s, which really
Dang.
surprised me. And I was kind of
So
curious to see if that
are
trend
you saying
continued.
that in season 8 that has swung the other way?
Swung the other way. So season 8, there were 54 2-1s, 42 2-0s. So there were more matches uh, as a kind of percentage. You're kind of closer to even, but in absolute terms, you're balancing out the season 7 numbers to get to nearly even overall. But yeah, slightly more 2-0s or 2-1s, excuse me, in season 8. Um,
In
you
that
know,
case, I'm very excited to see what happens in 9 and see if that changes again or see which way it maybe is
Yeah,
like the true number.
because I think we had obviously this has been our biggest KAGI season with 43 players this season, and I know there's a whole bunch of people who are I'm not gonna say new to adaptive, but sort of maybe a little bit new to such an entrenched league like KAGI is. Like there's a lot of really dedicated KAGI players.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a chance that um, maybe some of that impacted a little bit of the data compared to some of the 2.0s we saw in KAGI 7.0, which only had, I think, I can't remember exactly how many players had in KAGI 7.0, but it was a lot more of the sort of regular faces.
Yeah, I think KAGI 7 had around 25-ish, give or take three, I think, is where we were. So this is pretty significantly higher, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I always think too. I mean, you get the first game in the books. If the players are both really or they're both strong players, kind of roughly even footing, and they've brought decks that are kind of both in the 2.0 capable wheelhouse. You might expect a fairly even split between 2.0s and 2.1s overall. If you're kind of thinking that going into that second game, there's roughly even odds, and then it comes down to kind of who's playing better that day. I don't know, but I was initially expecting way more 2.1s than 2.0s, maybe like you both were. And I don't know, maybe the even split kind of speaks to how well matched a lot of these players are. I mean, it's certainly a very strong field. Like, there's no question, it's a very strong field. Um, yeah, but I was
Yeah, I think
surprised. I was
the
surprised.
higher number of 2.0s might indicate that more people are bringing, like those middling tier decks than we thought, because the prevailing opinion of adaptive was that you are at the advantage if you bring the stronger deck, because the theory was that if you choose who goes first in game three, you have the advantage. But to me, seeing more 2.0s indicates to me that maybe everyone's bringing the big decks, but I don't think that's true because I certainly am not. I usually target something that I feel like can win or lose many different matches. And so I wonder if we looked at the data on SAS, if we'd be seeing more people bringing stuff in the low 70s or high 60s when, the prevailing thought is like, oh, it's, adaptive is still favoring people that bring the best Archon deck. And I don't think that's true.
Mhm.
And I don't think the data is showing that either.
No, and that's kind of a great place to jump to. And I know, Murph, you had considered even kind of changing some of the rules around who goes first in game three to counteract some of that. I don't know where your thinking is on that still, but to Quick Draw's question, we see a very pronounced spike in the like 65 to 75 SAS range, and whether again whether you take that for kind of gospel on deck strength or just consider that folks are have that sort of range in mind as a benchmark of sorts. That seems to be where folks are homing in. And I want to say too, I'm just going to refresh myself on the actual numbers here. That uh, while by and large, 60% of ish of folks in that kind of 66 to 75 range. While that's the case, uh, the the players with the slightly higher decks seem to be winning a little bit more often. So it's kind of like you want to be in that range, but then maybe be a little bit higher. So I don't know if there's a little bit of that coming through. Again, like, I don't think the size of the data set is really so large as to kind of get that, drill down that deep per se. But it was interesting to see that you see folks winning a little bit more frequently with the higher SAS decks within that range, and then it kind of it washes out a little bit. In the 76 to 80 SAS range, you've got 14% of your winners, 16% of the losers. So interesting. Uh,
So
interesting.
am I looking at this right that we have only about 12% of decks were above 80 SAS in the last two seasons? Is that right?
About 12% of decks were
We're
above.
81 or above.
I believe that's right. I believe that's right.
Yeah. So that's not that much. And you look at like 71 to 75 SAS is 35% of decks represented,
Mm-hmm.
which is the highest of any range. And 66 to 70 is the next highest at 28%. So like you said, like that 66 to 75 range, we're seeing over half the decks being played at that point.
Yeah.
And I think that's related to the number of 2.0s we're seeing being a lot higher than we expected.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Yeah.
I completely agree. And I think it's also interesting too. See, one of the things too about adaptives, and one of the most common advice you get with it is that the best deck to choose is a deck you're very familiar with. And sort of on average, people tend to have more plays on decks that usually do a little bit more stuff, which also usually tends to correlate with slightly higher SAS, sort of high 60s, low 70s, even mid 70s. And I think just by the nature of people playing, especially people playing an online league, they're usually a little bit more, slightly more competitively bent or slightly more engaged with the game. Usually decks that are sort of floating in that range are more likely to see more play and more casual play and more experience with them than you know people playing like 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we only saw one deck brought that was 55 or below. So, um, and
That
five
was
decks brought. Do you know which one it was, or
I do
can you
I
share
do
that
know.
without,
It was a teammate of yours. It was a match played live on stream against Beehawk.
I don't even know who that
Uh,
is. I have no idea what deck that is.
It was. I
Is
have
it?
to go. The video of it is out. I played Judge, and they played. I'd have to go look at it. I could check. I could check that if you want to
Are you
have a
saying Beehawk played a deck that was 55?
54, I think.
Ooh.
Wow. Wait, did I? I think I watched that match, and I mean, I don't look at DOK during games that I play or even during games that I watch. I remember you playing Beehawk, and I never would have thought his deck was like
Me
55 or
either.
below.
That was a shock when I went to the. Let's see.
Was this his like library
Oh, you know what?
library
I
access
didn't
deck?
have the deck links. I think I was too lazy. They played Four Eyes, Halloran, Palace Tutor.
Four Eyes,
All right,
Halloran,
JT's
Palace
going to pull that
Tutor.
up while I talk briefly here. We saw six decks that were 60 or below, which is 60 is, not that low. It's pretty low, but that is far fewer than we saw at 80 and above. We saw in the last two seasons at 81 or above, we saw 36 decks. So um, it is definitely like you talked about, like people want to play decks you're familiar with, and those are generally going to be stronger decks. And so we see very few decks played in the 50s, um, quite a lot comparatively speaking played in the 80s, but still far fewer than what's in like the mid 60s to high 60s to low 70s kind of range. So um, yeah, it's all relative, but we are getting better. Over two seasons now, we're seeing this trend kind of correlate to like around 70 plus or minus 5. Okay, so here's Four Eyes Halloran we're looking at right now. It's an AOA deck. It has 0 Amber control. I do remember that.
Mm-hmm.
It's got some pretty decent creature control with an Unlock Gateway, Key to Dis. It's got a Poltergeist for some artifact control. Um, what else did it have with it? Brobnar, Dis, and what was the third house, JT?
Don't forget those
It
Gargantus
is a
Scrappers.
Logos,
Logos.
I think. I believe it's Logos.
Yeah, logos. We've got the Fila. There's Harland Mindlock, Jargoggle, Sutterkin, Rocket Boots, Bouncing Death Quark, Lapwork Poke, Finger Trap. Yeah, I remember this game. I remember this game well. Seeing the list, I think he had high hopes of the Binding Irons, punishing you for a high bid on Judge. Is that right?
Yeah, I played the Cruiser Straight Judge.
Yep. Yeah. So cool. Very cool to see, and very very saucy. Bringing the hard 0 on Amber Control. No cards listed under that stat on DOK. It's not just rounding. There's a 0.
That was also a really fun match because the third game, I took Judge for 10 chains, and the game was close. I think that's one of the games where I've really felt the most, where chains actually evened out the game.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think if one of the Binding Irons had come in the top half of the deck instead of the bottom half of the deck, I think it very well could have gone their way.
I remember thinking that too because especially if you got both of them. If they both came early, that's
Yeah,
putting you down to a 3 card hand, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
Oof.
And that's just
yeah.
like really hard to deal with.
And
It
correct
is,
me if
yeah,
I'm
and
wrong too, Murph, but
it's a hard thing too because there was definitely sort of on the last couple turns there definitely was more outs than just one I think to play towards.
mhm.
Um, But with that many cards, yeah, like an extra 6 chains on top of the 10 that I had, it would have been brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, 16
Well,
would be rough. And I want to say too, you took a couple gambles on the book of LEQ, Book of Lek. That
I took one gamble.
okay. Oh, one
Yeah, I
gamble.
took one gamble earlier on in the game, which was it was definitely a little questionable,
Look a
but paid
little.
off. So
All right.
a little questionable.
Fortune
Yeah,
favors the bold, as they say.
yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. Right on. But yeah, interesting. Super interesting to see. We've got lots of outliers represented in this sloppy Labwork crew. We've got Mr. Outlier himself, Quick Draw, and Behawk now as well, bringing up one of the edges of our charts. So nice.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Yeah, they're both. Your team is ruining the data.
We have
or we're making it real.
That maybe.
we love those outlier stats. I mean, not tonight a big fan of the low A decks as well. So not to be outdone. Although Behawk's 0 there is a statement. That is a statement. I don't know. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
I am personally not a fan of 0A and adaptive. I don't think it adds enough. Like that stat alone, I don't think that stat is like. I think it jumps out at you, and I think maybe you think like, ooh, that's like, can they play well against 0A, or play well with 0A? Either way, I don't think it is enough of a skill testing factor by itself. Um, and it's not really something that I consider whenever I play an adaptive deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how. I mean, we'd have to have the actual deck links to pull some of the other stats forward. But if there were trends on deck selection on some of those, but yeah, we're getting into real heavy data collection territory here. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's those things where I don't want to make I don't want to like put like. See, at the end of the day, like I don't want to make people feel like violated by the data collection for
Mhm.
during the match report, or make it too tedious where like they don't want to like do it 7 times during a season.
Sure.
Yeah. And we've got to be consistent now as well, moving forward in future seasons. We want to make sure we're adding to this data, not collecting new things and, you know, creating new data points. We want to try to make this data as consistent as we can and as reliable as we can by kind of increasing the total sample size. So, um, what is there anything else about SAS that stuck out to you guys? Like, let's talk about maybe SAS Delta. I thought that was a pretty interesting thing to look at.
That's where I was gonna go next.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
What sticks out to you, Murph, with the SAS Delta data?
One of the things that I was rather surprising on the I was surprised at how close the average and median SAS deltas are for both two woes and two ones.
mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm.
the fact that it's pretty much the same no matter which one you're in, I totally would have thought the average SAS delta for a 2-1 would be way higher. Just because like having actual more clear favorites there.
And for the folks who only have ears on the show, we've got an average SAS delta of 7.0 and a median value of 6.0 among the 2.0 results. So a difference in SAS of seven on average and a median of 6, which is, I mean, not a ton, but almost the exact same thing on the 2-1 side. So on the 2-1 side, right, you've got an average of 6.5 and a median of 6 in the difference in SAS values.
I
So
Really
what this is
guess
interesting.
showing us, if to make sure I understand it, and what this looks like is that the SAS delta does not determine whether or not we have a 2-0 or a 2-1. Is that correct?
yes. Yeah. Yes. Actually, yeah. And I was about to say because I know there is one extreme outlier in SAS in a 2-0 SAS delta. Thanks to you, Quick Draw. Um, but that actually doesn't even matter because our median SAS delta is still in line. So like that extreme outlier not going to affect our median value.
Yeah.
So that's probably why we're a whole SAS point higher on the average, but it's not going to affect the median. So the fact that the median is a 6 on both 2-1 and 2-0, I think is exactly right, Quick Draw. I don't think SAS deltas are the biggest reason why we're seeing 2-1 games.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Or,
very interesting and unexpected.
well, I mean, and maybe a takeaway from that is that folks are maybe targeting decks that are wildly underrated or overrated in the hopes that folks are going to be looking at folks are me looking at DOK when it comes to bidding and letting that influence their judgment. I don't know. I don't know. I think
I'm
that's
less inclined to believe that one, JT. I appreciate the theory,
yeah.
but I am less inclined to believe that one.
Well, I know it's not the
Plus,
case for our extreme outlier.
that's
That's
true.
true. Yeah.
Because I think one thing, I mean, when I play KAGI, when I play adaptive matches, I don't look at DOK ever.
Hmm.
Like I just go by the deck list because I know look as I know Quickdraws mentioned before on many episodes as well. Like looking at DOK and like seeing the arc stats and like not seeing the actual cards can really skew how you view a deck and like miss the things that are actually important. So I really try to avoid that. But I also know that I know that's true for a number of people. Some people absolutely use SAS during an adaptive match. Like all power to them, use all tools available to you. Um, but I think sort of nominally, I think it's less of a intentional impact
Yeah.
than that.
I to me, yeah, the status score and all the arc stats are just a distraction during a game. I'd rather look at the cards and what I'm looking out for, what they're trying to do. So to me, yeah, I don't look at it either. You guys mentioned the outlier game. We can just talk about it briefly. It was a 21 point SAS difference. I ended up with a 2-0 win, and it was just a straight up bad draw in the first game for my opponent. Um, so that kind of stuff happens. Like it was an outlier. It is slightly affecting the data. It's one out of 150 games that we have. Um,
Hmm.
I don't think it was, you know, I don't think it's super meaningful. It doesn't say anything specific about my deck or their deck. It was just an outlier. I mean,
Hmm.
it is what it is.
Yep. No, I completely agree. And like I said, even if it was affecting our average a fair bit, because it's like 21 instead of like maybe like a 7, the median is not affected at all. So
Yeah.
I think it really does hammer home that point that it's not the reason we're seeing a third game in an adaptive match.
Yeah.
Hmm. And I mean, and this kind of, I mean, points to the limitation of any ranking or rating system that's going to boil down a deck, something like a deck of a keyboard's deck to one number. I mean, it's a great way to organize large numbers of decks. It's really hard to use one to get one number that's going to help you predict the outcome between two decks, right? Two specific decks. And so
Yeah.
I know I see this a lot playing, the sloppy sex deck games. We very often see the matches go in favor of the lower rated deck, and it's really because it comes down to how these specific decks match up as opposed to how they stand up to a larger pool of decks. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Is there any other data that sticks out to you guys as far as the SAS deltas go? Looks like we had just the one outlier game we mentioned that was the overall SAS delta was actually, sorry, there were three games where a SAS delta was at least 21 or higher.
Hmm.
One of them resulted in a 2-0, the other ones resulted in 2-1s. 45%, 46% of games were a 0 to 5 SAS delta. So almost half were like two pretty evenly matched decks, which is kind of in line with what we looked at with like most people bringing something in the 66 to 75 range. Kind of lines up right there. Um, 6 to 10 was the second most common, just as we could probably expect. That was about 35%. So just in the 0 to 10 SAS delta range, we're looking at about 80 or 81% of the games played. So vast majority played within 10 SAS points.
Yep.
Hmm.
Which is super cool, and I don't know, it speaks to maybe the health of the format or the strength of the games that you're or the quality of the games that you're seeing. Hopefully, at least in theory, right? One of the worries about adaptive, right, is you play two meaningless games and then go to a third game where you bid. But I mean, if you're often seeing decks that are around the same power level, like that's not the case, which is good. Which is good to see. I think it would be more worrisome message about the format in general if this chart was reversed and we saw lots of disparity. Lots of 80 plus decks, lots of 60 and below decks smashing against each other for two games to play a third with lots of chains. So it's cool.
Yeah, I think we'll have to. I'm really interested in looking at this over time because I really feel like this is different than what adaptive used to be. And I wish we had data from the early KAGI seasons because this is just, it's not really what people, you know, think when they think about adaptive. like we've said before, like the prevailing theory was that adaptive favor is the strongest deck, and the data that we have from these two seasons is not indicating that people are believing in that theory, at least not like they used to. And I really I feel that in my matches as well. Like I feel like every match I play, I am capable of winning uh, the first or the second game. Uh, so, it's interesting that that's kind of normalizing, and I'm really curious to see how this changes over time as well. Um, we seem to have lost our good friend Murph, and we hope that he comes back online shortly. But we have to fill some air in the meantime, JT.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can say that I've personally kind of lived that shift in thinking. You know, my go-to deck for adaptive for a long time was Combo Grieve. He who slices the gully, which is a it has its intricacies, but it's a very typical kind of Coda heist rush steely deck, right? So my plan with that deck, with bringing that deck to adaptive, was to win very convincingly in the first, lose, maybe even concede the second, and then go into game three having already played my deck in a lot of different at a lot of different chain levels, and just using that knowledge to gain an advantage in the third game. And I mean, it worked. It worked fine. Wasn't the most fun way to play adaptive, I think. But I think I've kind of also shifted my thinking in like what's giving me the best chance overall. Because I don't know, the high chained games do tend to feel like so. I mean, we're maybe drifting far afield here, but I do feel like the higher you go in chains, the while you can normalize or while you can find a breaking point where the match outcome is 50-50, the the not all of 50-50 games are the same, right? Some are contests of skill, some are contests of luck. You've normalized deck, but now you still have to determine how much of the match is going to be determined by skill and determined by luck. And I think super high chain counts push that pendulum toward the luck side versus the skill side. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the criticism too of adaptive was that the third game is often just determined by luck. If both players are bidding at an optimal point, it's going to come down to draws. And I guess there is some credibility to that theory. But Mooseman Dude in the chat, who is
Mm-hmm.
now a two-time top cut KAGI player, um, also brings up the point that the presence of the 2-0 tiebreaker may push players to want to bring decks more in the high 60s, low 70s. That is absolutely true. But I personally think players are also realizing what you talked about, GT, is that when you're at a higher chain point, there is more variance in games. And myself personally, as a competitive adaptive player, I don't want that variance involved. I would rather have a match decided in two games through good play in those two games. So I do think there's a few factors here. One, as Moose Man Dude mentions, is definitely that tiebreaker, but I think that's smaller compared to. I think players are learning and realizing how much variance there can be in a third game, and I think players just prefer to avoid that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. The shift in thinking from there's a slight advantage to be gained by going first in game three to actually I'd prefer the game to be decided before we get to that point. And if we have to go there, let's do it with as few chains as possible, uh, because yeah, otherwise we're shifting that balance of determination towards luck versus skill, and that's not preferable if you believe that you can carry the day with skill. I guess if you think you're outclassed, go with that high variance swingy deck. I don't know. That's the thing you could do. Um, yeah.
You could bring Woe then, right?
Oh, shots fired. Is that this
Yeah,
episode?
maybe
I
that's a
don't
bit
know.
too much.
We can talk about that later. It is something that I'm interested in the question, the theory at the end of the show about what Woe is going to do to this data.
Hmm.
But we can table that discussion for now. Um, Murph is back. Welcome back, Murph.
Thank you. Yeah, that was unfortunate, and but it shouldn't happen again.
Nope, all good. And the Zencaster is chugging along fine. So I think
Wow.
we're all
Yeah,
Okay.
and according
Yeah.
to Zencaster, I just was quiet for a while.
right.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, so the next kind of thing that maybe is relevant to look at, to your point, Quick Draw, is just kind of how the bids impacted outcomes, and also just kind of how frequently we saw different bid ranges. Because I was very curious, like, okay, like how much are people bidding when they get to game three? Like how high are they going typically? And then a question from some of the folks on the Sanctimonious Time Shapers Discord, like, do you typically see the folks who win the bidding, who take chains in game three, walking away with the win, or getting buried under those chains? Um, and so this is really interesting to me. We broke the bid ranges into buckets of three. We did break it out um, individually as well. Um, but I guess maybe starting there, we see things sort of taper off after 8 or 9 chains. Most common chain bids are in the 4 to 6 range. So a bid of 6 with the most common was the most common bid at a full 21% of games getting 6 bids in chains, with another 10% each at 4 and 5. So almost half of the games that go to game three end up with a bid between 4 and 6. If you include 0 to 3, then you're at about half the games at 6 or below. So that's interesting. Um,
Yeah.
I
I,
think
I think 6 or 7 is like right where most people stop because of the difference in like going from 6 to 7, and in
mhm.
particular, which player has the option of going first is, I think, I don't think we have that data, but they're more likely to go to 7 than the person who's probably going to go second. Um, I do wish that, and I'm going to probably try to dig into this at a later point. I think that the count of the chains is very important to see 0 and 1, because 0 and 1 to me are the bids where one player thinks a deck is favored and the other player might think the other deck is favored, especially the zeros, because my game, that was the outlier we talked about with the 21 SAS differential. We both agreed that if my opponent had come away with game two, then it was his deck that had the higher SAS. He would have had to bid. I would have had to bid 0 on my deck, and he would have passed on it, and I would have totally agreed with him, and I think he would have been favored. So like I think if we look at I don't know how many there were that had 0 chains bid in game three, or even 1 chain. I think those are interesting to separate out from the 2 and 3 chains.
Yeah.
If we looked at this, so that's something that I'm going to look at. But like you had mentioned, like around 6 is, I think, pretty common. We saw that bid a lot with
Hmm.
a lot of these games went to game three.
Yeah. So a total of 4 games saw a bid of 0, and two a bid of 1. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know of one instance in particular of a game in which it was agreed upon by me. I was spectating it. It was agreed upon by me and both players, where the players roll out bid on the deck that did not win the previous 2 games.
Interesting.
So there is a case of that. And I believe that was in KAGI 7.0.
Hmm.
But that is also a data point in there.
Hmm.
Wow. Interesting. It feels like
How?
it's a thing that ought to be allowed, but
It should be allowed. I think it was simply an oversight. I understand like railroading it for maybe accessibility reasons. Um, but I just think it's such a silly restriction
huh.
that's unnecessary.
Do you
You
remember
should
how high that bid went?
I think it was only 2 or 3 chains.
Okay, pretty small then.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that is interesting. Um, I don't.
Actually,
I
I think
mean,
there's
I've.
2 cases. There's 2 cases actually, because one of the ones was the player they had different decks they bid on. One person took their own deck, and the other person took their deck, and they said, "All right, let's run it back."
Yeah,
Because they were confident that one player was like, my deck can win this matchup even though it didn't win the last 2 games.
I think that's a legit approach as well, as long as each person chose the deck that they brought, because that's the same thing as saying like I won, my deck won the first 2 games. I have to bid 0 on my deck. The opponent
Yeah.
passing and not bidding. It's the same thing
It's a
essentially.
pass on 0 for sure.
It's a
Yeah,
pass on
it
0.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, cool. And I guess the last thing I want to point out there is we also looked at how often the person playing the chain deck won that third game, um, and it turned out that more often than not, the chained player was losing that third game, which is interesting. It was
Was
close.
losing it.
Was
Really?
losing it. Yeah. So it was close. At 0 to 3 chains, the chained player was winning a quarter of the time.
Hmm.
At 4 to 6 chains, 47%, 47% in the actually in the 4 chains to nine chains range. It was pretty even. 47, 48% of the time, and then in the 10 plus chains range, there are again are not a ton. There was only 10 games in the 10 plus chains range, and the chained player only won 3 of those.
And then there was one game at 13. Is that correct?
There was one game at 13 plus. So yeah, there was 9 at 10 to 12. There was one at 13 plus. Yep, and among those 10 games, the chained player won 3 of them, and it
And
was
so, what
not
does
in the
that tell
30
you
plus.
guys? Is this just that people are overestimating how much better a deck is, or do you guys think this is the variance involved?
At 13 plus with one sample, inconclusive. Um, at 10 to 12, I think that is variance. Taking a gamble on variance. I
Mm-hmm.
think my game with Judge versus Beehawks deck, that was in the 10 to 12 range.
Hmm. And that you
And
said earlier that game could have gone differently if they had just drawn some binding irons earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
if I drew differently in that game, or Beehawk drew differently in the game, it was like that game was like genuinely neck and neck.
Hmm. So how
Yeah.
many more data points do you need to see in the 10 to 12 range before you say like, okay, yeah, that 33% win rate for the chain deck is, you know, is there a point where you could say like, yeah, that's probably like that means something different than just simple variance?
Um. No, I think that's just how I view if you're taking a 10 chains on a deck. That's just how I think the matchup. You're evaluating the matchup
Hmm. But
personally.
if it over like say like 10,000 games, if we're still seeing the chain deck losing 67% of those, that means something, like because when we
That's
talk
fair
about
enough. Yeah.
variance, like one of the sides has to win. And
Hmm.
if the chain bid, if we all agree or all the players agree that the chain bid at 10 was correct, and that's makes it an even matchup, we should see that approaching 50%.
Yeah, I think so. I guess the statistically relevant sample size I think is probably somewhere around 20 to 30
Okay, so we are
matches.
a couple seasons away, probably.
Probably. But I think 20 to 30 matches I think is sort of enough sample size. You can say, okay, like there's a couple bad ones in there. There's a couple like, two good ones, and I think we start getting towards normalizing the curve of happenstances.
Hmm. And so for the 4 to 6 and the 7 to 9 range of chain bids, we see win percentages right around 47.5%. I would call that within the margin of error. Those are,
I would as well.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
32 and 21 games respectively in those bid ranges.
Yeah. And
Do you agree?
especially like if I don't know what it would be if you take the game 3 bid range to be 4 to 9, I'd be curious like at that point that's like the large majority of your wait that's 28 plus 42. So 60% of your games are between the 4 to 9 range, and both those having
70%.
a 70%. Yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
70%. And with those having pretty much 50-ish range, I think that's at least proof that within that range it's equalizing a matchup quite well.
Hmm. But again, like if we see over the next few seasons, this is still like around 47%. I think eventually we have to say like you are uh, slightly favored if you're not taking the chains.
Yep. Sort of the whole thing of like, if you're on black, you've got like a 49, 48% chance instead of the 51% chance you get over on white on black on white.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think that's certainly eventually I think we will start seeing um, trends like that. And hopefully
yep.
we live in an age where Kagi has run enough seasons we can get that many relevant statistics
Yeah.
data points.
but it'll. I mean,
aiming for statistical significance here. And maybe, if enough people watch or listen to the show, they might say like, well, next season I'm going to bid one chain less than I think, and
Absolutely.
maybe we'll move closer to 50% then.
well, that's the
I
thing.
mean,
It's
I
such a
will
random
also
stat.
be very
Yeah.
clear. When I bid, I'm always like, it's always because yeah, I have a number in my head. When I go into chain bidding, I've got a number ahead. Maybe it's like 8, maybe it's 6, maybe it's 7. And I say, you know what? I get to the number and I say, you know what? Can I do one more? You know, like can I do one more chain? And then like it's really easy to talk yourself into maybe just one more.
Hmm.
So that's also something where probably when you know at that point you just need to be disciplined.
I think for me personally, I usually have a number in my head at the start of bidding, and once I reach that, if I bid that number that I like projected, I'm just thinking in my head like, please take this from me, bid higher, because I generally don't want the chains at that point. I'm like, I don't want to regret that bid. I want them to pay for that bid. Is what I'm thinking.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I never if I'm going my bid range is like when do I feel comfortable where do I feel comfortable taking this deck and thinking I can like reasonably win with it.
Yeah.
That's where I take it where go try and peg the number at.
Yeah. You approach that
Um,
number and then decide whether or not you want to gamble once you reach it, and how saucy your opponent's treating you.
Exactly. If the opponent really wants that deck, hey, I'll go two more.
do you guys? Okay, this is a sidebar, but do you guys consider how quickly your opponent bids in your bidding? Like if you're like, my max is 7, and you go like straight to 4, and then they immediately go 5, and then they immediately go 7. Are you thinking like, oh man, like eh, they were like really quick with that? Maybe I underestimated it because they're so confidently going to 7, they don't even have to think about it. Is that a factor for you?
It's all part of the mind games.
Exactly.
It's all part of the mind games. And yes, it does get me. It does get me, but I you do have to be cognizant that, at the end of the day you're playing against another player.
Mhm. I do not care.
I love
I,
that.
I do not care. And in
You
fact,
don't care.
in fact, I will go into bidding. Like I'll take a minute, think about my bid before I go in, and then I'll be that person who's like, I'm just gonna pause here for 20 seconds, make you think I'm
For no reason.
sweating the next bid. All right, 3, fine, but I'm gonna go to 7.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
also the things more than the snap bids is the
The long
long
pause.
pauses
Hmm.
between bids. That's what really gets me a lot more.
The long pauses
Yeah.
get people. They do. They really do.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And the jump scare is like I couldn't care less about your jump scare. Like I've already got my number 9. Then the jump scare is not gonna impact me. But I do think about where I want to end up and if I should skip a number to more favorably approach my final bid. Uh,
Hmm.
I mean, if I want to be on an odd or an even, for example, though I often worry about whether that's giving away too much information. But but what can you do? What can you do?
I think
So
it's also a mind game, real mind game of like if my number's around 5, 6, 7,
Hmm.
it's a real mind game of like where do I need to go for them to either overshoot where I want to take it or get me just ahead of where I want it.
yeah,
So
Th-
that's also a
this is the beauty of adaptive is that like if your max is 7 and you know you're going first, you don't want to gamble at going to 6 to give them a chance to get it at 7. Like
hmm
if you're like confident that you can win with 7 going first, you're going to skip 6 a lot. And so this is definitely part of the bidding strategy. You have to think about that.
Yeah.
There's one thing I want to touch on in the bid ranges again before I would really love to talk about sets and some of the sets we have on the sets. There is a direct relationship with the average SAS delta and the game 3 bid ranges. We see that if the SAS delta is around 4, those more often than not resulted in a game 3 bid range of 0 to 3, and the number goes up as the SAS delta goes up. So um, pretty much expected. I think it's worth noting though that like this is what we would expect. The higher the SAS delta, the higher the bid range we can see in game 3.
Hmm.
yeah, which is interesting. I mean, it's sort of interesting to have this data piece at odds with what we saw earlier in SAS deltas in 2Os and 2-1s being so close.
Yeah.
sort of, I think it's an interesting piece of like, obviously SAS isn't necessarily what's getting us to a 2-1, or I mean, maybe it's not obvious. That data seems to suggest that SAS isn't what's getting us to 2-0 or 2-1 specifically. And yet the average SAS delta in a game 3, does sort of suggest a valuation of deck strength in comparison.
Yeah, this might say more about the players than it does about the
Yeah,
actual deck disparity, the strength disparity.
yeah, absolutely. It also, and I think because it's one of those things too, because the number of counts for game 3 bid ranges is small, and when there is like a 10, because SAS is a good corollary for deck strength. I think everyone in the community agrees with that. It's often a good indicator. And so when people are playing it in adaptive, I think there's often chances for the decks to be pretty good and like to sort of match sort of the SAS evaluation. And then we can sort of see that reflected in when we do see a large disparity, both players are evaluating the decks somewhat reasonably. But again, the 10 to 12 range having an average SAS delta of 10.0, that's we saw that it was a 33% win rate.
Yeah, that's not a good win rate.
It's not a good win rate. Like I mean, even if it's not like super statistically relevant because it's only 9 games, like still 33% I think is enough to say like, hey, these decks are being overbid on.
I wonder if we don't have this data. We can't have this, but I wonder how many times people are looking at SAS when they when they bid up to like 10 or 12 and they end up losing. Like that's one of the reasons I just don't even want to look at it. I don't want to think to myself like, man, this is an 83 versus a 72. Obviously, the 83 is better. I don't even want to think about that. I don't even want my brain to. I don't want my brain to nudge me higher than I think it should, just based on my experience in the two games and
Yeah,
knowledge of the decks. So
which I think is I know as you mentioned a little bit earlier, but like the first 2 games are not at all meaningless 98% of the time because even just getting a feel for how the matchup plays twice, sort of in two separate hands, because I think it's also really important in the second game to see how your opponent is handling your own deck.
for sure.
Because if you're going into game 3 and saying like, man, I don't think my opponent's handling my deck well, like I think you're even more comfortable going maybe giving it for lower chains.
And then there's going to be the players like J2 who are intentionally sandbagging game two.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of things going on there, but for sure,
Sneaky.
just conceding. You just hit concede.
Yeah, I only do that when I lose game one and don't want to keep going.
Yeah.
The work meeting's coming up. I need to finish it.
Like, okay, kids are waking up soon. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we actually we're going over a lot of stuff, spending a lot of time on this tonight. I do want to move on, if we can, to look at the set data that we have. And JT, you'd put together some quick numbers on the cross set encounters, how often certain sets played against other ones, how often they won against them, and so we have some numbers on that I would really love to look at. Um, in all, we have, I think, 143 games that we're looking at. And if we look at win percentage across set, we see that was not surprising to any of us that Coda has the lowest win percentage in adaptive of
Mm.
any set. It was around 39%. So you bring Coda in season 7 or 8, you have about a 39% chance of coming away with a win, either 2-0 or 2-1.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I
which
mean, I think we all
yeah,
expected that. Yeah, go ahead. We're all
yeah, I
thinking
was
the
gonna
same
say,
thing.
yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned in the DC episode that you unfortunately were not there for a quick draw, but I think Coda is just a set that I think it's not tricky. There's not a lot of complicated things going on. It's a lot of like counting board, counting hand, counting amber pips, and sort of pretty straightforward play. And I think it's just too easy to evaluate properly in an adaptive match.
Not tonight is screaming and throwing her throwing a brick at her listening device at the moment. I know Not Tonight thinks differently of Coda, and she does have some Coda decks that are not that straightforward, and they kind of fly in my opinion of what Coda really is. Kind of like someone what you described. That's how I feel about Coda. But there are definitely Coda decks out there that are more difficult than that. I think in particular the ones with the low efficiency, where
Hmm.
you have to make the decisions to hold cards more often, understand which ones are most important. If you need to hold your TMTP, or if you can afford to just play it for the pip, things like that. Like there are some complexities in Coda, but I think overall we're seeing 39% win rate for Coda. To me is not surprising because not every Coda deck is like that, but there are some exceptions.
There's exceptions to every rule, and for sure, I know Karen Brown has a Coda deck that they went undefeated in Newton with, or Tesla. They went undefeated in Tesla tournament with, and they also top coded KAGI last season with that same deck. And it absolutely does exactly that. Has a lot of complicated things going on, and a lot of decision points, irreversible decision points. But I think in general, Coda just is not it for adaptive.
Mhm. Yeah, in general, the data backs it up too.
Yeah.
But there are only 36 Coda games. Um, and JT, you were putting these numbers together for us. It was 33 of them were out of set. So, and then there were 3 games between 2 Coda decks. So,
Yes.
do I have that right?
You got it right. You got it right.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, so that that's a decent number. It's the lowest of any set though. So people are not really bringing Coda, and when they do, they're not winning as much.
Hmm. Yeah.
The DT best set crew is in full force tonight.
Can't escape it.
Yeah, yeah. Carl has egg on his face right now. I don't know. Yeah. Although I can't say anything because I did not bring any coda to. Actually, my previous, as I was mentioning before, previous go to was a coda deck, but is not a great counterpoint because it was a coda deck because it is fairly straightforward.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
I was banking on knowing its chain temperament
yeah.
in its straightforwardness.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So the surprise here in the cross set data to me, I don't know about you guys, was that Worlds Collide actually has the highest win percentage of any deck or of any set in KAGI 7 and 8. 65% win percentage out of set for Worlds Collide. Pretty
Yeah.
high.
It's interesting to note that it is the highest conversion rate, so it wins the most, while also being the second lowest presence.
Mm.
It has a presence rate of about 17%
Hmm.
Hmm.
and has a conversion rate of 65%. So very impressive. Whereas Coda is a presence of 13%
Interesting.
with, you know, by far the lowest win rate.
And also the only set that shows a positive conversion against each other set. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I
Above a
think
3.
you nail on the head there. I think Worlds Collide being apparently a very good adaptive set is very surprising to me.
Yeah, me as well. Um, the second lowest. Look, we just got to go there, Murph. Like you and I,
Hmm.
we're
Drinking
on the same
medicine.
page
Yeah.
We
about
are.
DT, but DT is looks like 50%. Sorry, no, 47% out of set. The numbers kind of uh, they get a little weird if you look at like in set win percentage because obviously it's going to be 50%.
Hmm.
So 47% is where DT lands as far as its win percentage out of set, which is the second lowest, right after Coda,
Yeah.
and that's very surprising to me.
Hmm. And
I, I I'm a staunch believer in DT for adaptive. I do not see a future in the next 6 months where I play a non DT deck in KAGI.
yeah, me
That
either. So
confident.
so on the presence rate train versus conversion rate, DT is at 18.3%
Hmm.
of the field across Kagi 8.0 and 7.0.
18.7, but we'll go with that. No, I'm just kidding.
18.7. All right, 18.7. Oh yeah. Okay, 18.7. Um, so still, I mean, like it's. I'm surprised it's lower. I guess I'm both surprised and not surprised. It's kind of third lowest of those, or I guess third highest too. I guess you could say,
Right in the
Right in the
middle.
middle.
right in the middle. Um,
Goldilocks.
but I'm also not that. I'm kind of surprised. 'Cause I do think, and I stand by the fact that I think DT is a great adaptive set. I'm with you, Quick Draw.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I'm not. I'm pretty much the only sets I'm playing in adaptive or AOA or DT. Um, but yeah, it's absolutely surprising.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Can't argue with the numbers though.
When it was Coda, it's like, yep, worst one ever. And now, data doubters.
I
See,
mean,
the best thing about data analysis is that, see, the data is just hard numbers, but what you do with it, that's up to us. We're the scientists.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and it's the funny thing too is we have a pretty sizable portion of the DT representation, at least from KAGI. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's not fair. How many times did we say it showed up? 50,
Looks like
55,
55.
55.
And so that's 55 different matches. Sorry,
55.
55 different DT decks appearing in matches, right?
Yes, or 55.
And
Yeah, yeah.
of those 55, I think I am 12 because I think I've played it every single game in the last 2 seasons.
Okay, so 12 out of
Yeah,
the
I think I
300-ish.
am also. I'd be 11.
I could be misremembering one or two maybe, but the other thing to me is that I mean this is going to sound arrogant. I'm going to toot my own horn. I've only missed one KAGI top cut, and I've made the last two. This one by the skin of my teeth with tiebreakers, but I'm doing well with DT, so why would I change? Right? Like the data might say something, but like my personal experience is there's some success with that. And so I'm not going to change what I'm doing. And I've played a lot of different DT decks the last 2 seasons. So it seems good to me. I'm not going to be swayed by data from the overall group in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I am not gonna run out and find a Worlds Collide adaptive deck. I've also had a lot of success with DT, and I bubbled last season. This season, I went undefeated with Dark Tidings, and I'm gonna be sticking with that.
Nice, nice. My most successful KAGI deck was Worlds Collide. Interestingly enough, I haven't played it. Been playing it a bit, but interesting, interesting, interesting.
There's another player as well who's made many a Kagi top cut, who is has a signature adaptive deck being Worlds Collide, which has
Mhm.
been featured in many a adaptive feature match.
Yeah, you're probably thinking of Algernon or Algernon.
That is correct.
That's
Yep.
what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
Yep. Algernon with their Worlds Collide. Um, I think it's Star Alliance Logos Dis,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and that thing is a great adaptive deck.
Agreed.
And
Yeah.
it's a great adaptive deck, and it's classic Worlds Collide too, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah. No C. Who needs it?
Who needs it? Big board.
Definitely. Runaway Word State with Star Alliance. Um, the one other thing to point out here, the most popular set among any of them that people were bringing, regardless of win or lose, is Mass Mutation. I think people just like Mass Mutation. It was a very, widely loved set when it came out for the power level, but apparently also for adaptive. 26% of people bringing Mass Mutation is the highest of any set. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really good to see that it's not so one-dimensional as like, oh, 40% of the field is MM.
yeah, it's not skewed
Um,
that much. It's slightly higher than AOA.
yeah, and I think the fact that, I mean, code is obviously the lowest at 13 point something, 13.3.
Hmm.
Um, but it's much better. Like even 13.3 isn't that low. Like it's not like it's 5% of the field. It's still like a sizable chunk. So I think it's just nice to see that people are, bringing a variety of sets. I would
Yeah.
really, I would not like to see a a season where it's like super dominated by two sets.
Well,
Yeah,
next season might be a lot of WoW just because people are interested in playing WoW.
Yes, I kind of sort of expect that if it's legal.
Yeah.
Because why not? I mean, like, hey, especially like I'm gonna be playing my personalized deck in adaptive.
Your
yeah.
personalized or your savior deck?
No, my personalized deck.
Your savior deck is some spicy stuff.
Yeah, that savior deck is very spicy, but no, I'm playing Murph, Fudgenator, Review Off, and Bog in adaptive if I can. Because why not?
That's
It's a
pretty
huge
cool.
it's cool. Yeah, that's just cool.
Yeah.
Even if like I have some DT decks that I think are better choices, just because it's fun.
I have a WoW deck that I could consider for adaptive, but I want to play like at least another, 25, 30 games with it before I settle on it. I am not a fan of WoW for adaptive. I think it is bad news. I'm just PSA. I do not think you should play WoW in adaptive. I think there's more variance in adaptive, or sorry, in WoW than there is in other sets, and I believe that players should go with you know previous sets that do not have tokens taking away a quarter of the cards in your deck each cycle. That that's all I'm going to say on that for now. I think WoW is a very bad adaptive set. Period.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mm.
and we'll find out. No, I think it'll be really interesting to see the set breakdown next at the end of next season.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm in a similar boat. Quick draw.
Cool. Well, either way, it's very nice to see this pleasing pie chart that shows seemingly equal wedges across all the sets. Feels like a nicely balanced distribution, at least in terms of set preference by player. And we're also seeing what seems like a really nice like sweet spot for deck strength. So that's cool too. So I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's kind of a nice wide open field where you get to play some decks that are not ones that you're bringing out to the heavy hitter Archon stuff, which is awesome. Which is awesome.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think the data is very reassuring of sort of the idea and theory crafting we've gone through previously of bringing not Archon Soul level decks is the preference.
Cool.
Or
Yeah,
is at least like a little bit is a little favored.
yeah. I believe there's one more chart we have with some pretty important statistical information that we want to show. It's
This is the
slightly
most
down
important one, yeah.
further. Yeah, this is the
Sweet.
most telling one to me. I thought this is irrefutable. JT, do you want to go over this one for us?
I guess for the folks on audio only, the chart is titled "Best Set," and it is a pie graph here. It is all blue, a field of beautiful blue with the legend of DT for
Yeah.
that blue color.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you can't argue with this stat. I mean, this is a perfectly statistically significant amount,
Yep.
and it's right here in this pie chart. It's irrefutable.
Hmm.
Backed
Yeah,
by.
and I think a real caveat should be noted as well on some of the DT and the on the set by set data, because for really in the DT ones, whoever's playing DT is winning anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hmm.
the only way because the only way for both players to win in Keyforge is for both of them to be playing DT. So I think it really is important to note that that win percentage has not been taken into account in the set by set breakdown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as a person who loves negative play experience decks myself, I know Quick Draw has a few in the DT camp that are right up my alley that could test your theory.
I have DT decks that are negative play experiences.
I think there are plenty of folks who would call Whirlpool negative play experience, and Evil Chapman certainly. Evil
I don't
Chapman
know what you're talking about. It sounds like a very, very positive playing experience. Um,
We can ask Lusto.
Yes, yes.
yeah, well, and Lesto had he and I had a fantastic time in our 3.5 hour KAGI match from season 7. So I think they would agree that that was not a negative playing experience. That was possibly the best Keyforge experience of our lives. When Murph, you went out and you were ice fishing for a few hours up in Canada, came back and we were still in game 1.
That's
right?
right. I had enough time to build the hut, drill the hole, catch a fish, clean it, come back, make
Yeah,
dinner, and the game was still going.
yeah. Very proud to say that that was a 44 turn game.
Wow.
That is true story.
That's just
Wow.
one of the games. There's three.
That was just one of them. That's correct.
Yeah.
Who does not like that? If you like Keyforge, you obviously like 44 turn Keyforge games.
I think we're
That's
Otherwise,
right.
you
starting
don't
to.
like Keyforge.
I think we're
The more
starting to scare
keyforce,
the
the
folks
better.
away from the future season of KAGI. Scaring them away.
Just put your time zone as something different so you can dodge quick draw.
Yeah. Yep.
Joke's on
Yep.
you though. I don't care which time zone I'm playing in.
That's right. Quick draw is actually a wild card.
Hard
Am I
R.
really? Do most
You
people
are, yeah.
choose their own time zone?
The most people click if necessary.
I don't. I think I sometimes do if necessary. I don't. It probably just depends on my mood for the day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also aware of the players who are able to be a bit more flexible with their time zones, just like being around the community and playing in a lot of leagues. So I try and respect players that I'm aware of that have either less time restrictions, more time restrictions, or time preferences.
Can you add
So
a fourth option to the time zone preference just to say JT Russell's time zone?
I can. Yeah, I can. Yeah. Yeah. I can. We can get all the haters into that group.
Nice. Nice. Well, I'll something to look forward to for season 9.0, 8.0, 10.0.
Yeah.
We'll see. Oofa doofa. 9.0, I guess. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. Well, you.
9.3 is the WoW League, so don't miss that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't miss that one unless I get tokenized. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm getting tokenized for that one for sure.
You're getting tokenized. You're getting tokenized. Well, cool. Well, we have gone a bit long. Why don't we wrap things up unless there's really urgent points to hit?
Oh man, no sponsors today?
Well,
Oh, we do have a sponsor.
we have a sponsor.
Oh, we have a sponsor?
We have a
We
sponsor.
Okay,
do.
wonderful. I was afraid because of my last appearance, so you'd get your sponsor rights taken away for this one. So I'm glad I didn't cost you some of the monetization.
Yeah, I mean the Twitch folks reached out because they were like, yeah, you're not supposed to have sponsors when you're streaming, but I know we worked it out. It's okay. It's okay.
We,
Okay,
we
good.
have we have special dispensation from the Twitch gods.
Awesome.
Yep. Yeah. So what a great segue. This episode of Bottom of the Beaker was sponsored by Jar Goggles Goggles. Jar Goggles Goggles, where style meets sight. Perfect glasses and contacts that sparkle and shine day and night. You'll find clear vision and flair in every pair. Thank you very much, Jar Goggles Goggles. Yeah, big supporters of the show. Glad we got them in today for the sponsorship. Do you all say? Oh, okay. Quick question. Do you all say Jar Goggle or Jar Goggle?
Jargoggle.
Gargoggle.
Okay, I usually say jar goggle too, but I figured when I talked to the rep on the phone, they were jar goggling, so I threw that in there just to kind of
Yeah,
differentiate.
you got a piece of sponsors.
Yeah. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
who are we to say that they're wrong?
Who are we?
Their
I mean,
product.
It's not my name.
no, that's not my name either. So yeah, check out jar goggles or jar goggles goggles, folks. And where can you find us? Well, we are streaming Bottom Beaker and recording live every Tuesday night at 9:30 Eastern, right here at twitch.tv/sloppylabwork. If you'd like to catch recordings of our past shows, you can head on over to youtube.com, search for @sloppylabwork there, and you'll see our recordings. And for the very best content, 57 times distilled and scraped from the bottom of the beaker. Search for that very phrase in your podcatcher of choice, and you'll see us there with a whole bunch of adaptive stats ready to nerd out with you. Thanks very much to our special guest, Murph Fudginator. Murph, any parting words? Let us know where folks can find you on the internets and check out your stuff.
Yeah, I am Murph Fudginator, as I am on my media channels. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/@Fudginator117, or you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Fudginator. And yeah, that's it. That's where I am. You can find me. I go live. I stream all my league games. My focus is on competitive league gameplay and highlighting those. And occasionally I hop on a podcast like this, and I run KAGI, the Adaptive Best of 3 League. Please join, because that is the best league in the world.
Cool.
Out of the Sanctimonious Discord.
That is right, out of the Sanctimonious Discord. Thank you, Quick Draw.
Awesome. Well, Murph Fudgenator, whose name handle is an obvious reference to his logo. So thank you very much, Murph Fudgenator. And quick try, any final words for the folks getting off at the last audio stop?
Just special thanks to Murph for running KAGI, for sharing this data with us, joining us tonight, and everyone else. Stay sloppy.
Stay sloppy. Stay sloppy indeed. Okay, sweet. Looks like Zencaster made it. We did it, folks. Not too
Whew.
shabby. Yeah.
Close call there with
Close call there.
Murph's technical difficulties, but
Whew.
Zencaster pulled through.
Pulled through.
Yeah, now Snapcaster's asking me to pay and start podcasting.
We'll have to. We can share a
Negative.
login. We'll figure it out. It can be like a.
They're always hustling.
Yeah.
It's a late night. You guys up for a game?
Ooh,
I am.
I could do a.
Do you download the file as an MP3 or a WAV?
I usually download them as a wave.
I don't think you need to do anything with that, Murph.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get my own audio
Just for fun.
You can do it.
just for fun.
You can do it.
I also just enjoy having backups of stuff like that, especially as a guest in case anything goes wrong on like the main side.
So you're a digital hoarder.
Oh, it'll get cleared out eventually, but
Does it though?
it does within a month.
Okay. All right,
It's more
fair
just like if JT doesn't need it within the week and like my audio isn't scuffed on their end
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, then I'm happy to hand it over.
Nice. I appreciate the the care and thought that goes in. You know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys want to play some Hand and Brain? Adaptive best of one?
Woe, adaptive woe, hand and
Yeah,
brain.
I will not play Woe adaptive tonight. I need to
Oh man,
I need to make sure I don't go to sleep angry.
fair enough. I think that was a good episode, by the way, for the Twitch people and for the Twitch people alone. I think that was a good episode.
Yeah, hope
Yeah,
you all
there you
hope you all
go.
enjoyed
Hope-
in the chat. Yeah. Um,
Back.
we'll see. We'll see how the audio comes out. Sometimes stats and tables can translate interestingly to audio format, but hopefully I think it was hopefully folks will be able to follow along just fine. So we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a Worlds Collide deck since we talked about how great Worlds
Oof.
Collide is at adaptive. And I think JT Russell would appreciate being either the hand or the brain with it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll leave that up to y'all if that all sounds good. My my I guess actually I don't know. I'm messing up the stats. My time I've been super busy this past season, so I've been often choosing my decks based on how quickly the games will go.
Yeah.
Part of why I haven't been playing my go-to Worlds Collide deck. But it'll be
I know
fun.
a lot of people pick their decks based on which pod they're in. So they would pick a deck with the house of the pod that they're in. And I accidentally did that last season, and then this season I started to do it until I lost, and I was like, nope, forget it. I'm going back to my tried and true favorites, and I switched
Which I
away
was
at that
too
point.
sweaty for
I was
flavor.
I was very sweaty. Yes.
Too
Um,
But you can't risk not making. I mean, you almost risk not making top cut.
I didn't think I was going to make it, to be honest with you. And even after I finished all of my games and I saw the standings, I was convinced that I was not going to. And it was just the way that the tiebreakers shook out with the different the number of drops and things like that. There's a lot going on with that. I didn't expect to. Um, Sad for our teammate, not tonight, who did not make it despite going 4-1. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
put,
mean,
yeah.
it was just such a tough season for make the top cut, which is why
Mhm.
next season we're not going to be doing that. Um,
I think a
so
top
I
cut
feel
of
bad.
12 or 2 per pod, I think is what you suggested. I think is good.
Yeah, it's gonna be two per pod, and then like whatever we need to do to make it a clean bracket
Hmm.
moving forward, we'll do.
Yeah, some
So
6-0s will get a bye, something like that. I think it's perfectly fair.
yeah,
Very legit.
yeah.
Yeah, two from each pod.
Double
and then-
elimination, everyone's favorite format.
I was just gonna say, yeah, two from each pod, and then invite 40 other people to have the elimination bracket.
Yeah,
Yes. Must
that's
be
right.
start at 10 a.m. Would actually mean start at 10:45,
That's
and then
right.
at 10:50 you tell everybody that they all have a bye except for 2 people.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, and joking aside, to the folks who are still kind of hanging on the stream, I think that's one where it's really worth sending the feedback. Uh, if you have thoughts on the double elimination
Yeah.
versus Swiss or however
Yeah.
it's done. Um,
Yeah, I mean, especially like I was in a position where I could have gone to Gen Con for nationals. I decided against it in the end. Um, but I'm really glad I did not go because it sounds like it would have. It doesn't sound fun. Like it doesn't sound like I wouldn't want to go to play 4 games of Keyforge in like 10 hours.
I had a blast at the Vault Tour. It was a great time. I would love to go to another one. My OP appearances are going to be probably thin on the ground, uh, but I will say it was disappointing to hear how many folks remarked that they were not going to come again unless the format changed. Like that was not a thing. That was a thing that I heard many say. Um,
Hmm.
um,
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, like it's expensive to go.
yeah,
Right.
People are spending paid time off or taking unpaid time off, and then on top of that, it's accommodations, food, entrance. I mean, entrance isn't that expensive, but entrance, and it's like it's expensive time wise and monetarily for a lot of people. And to
Yeah.
have to like to go to play Keyforge and not get to play Keyforge, I totally get the frustrations.
Hmm. Well, after the Vault tour, they said send the feedback through the contact us form. Um, I did that. Many others did. I think a similar thing is going to happen from Gen Con, where the same exact problem came about. Um, and I saw more posts on social media after Gen Con than I did. And I started to wonder, I wonder if social media might be a more impactful way of communicating the displeasure than a contact us form that goes to an inbox that a couple people are going to read. I mean, you can get some pretty bad press on social media these days just from someone saying, I played Keyforge at this event at Gen Con and this was terrible. And, you know, hundreds of people see that. It That's not good. And so I think they need to do something about the format that they've been forcing in these big events. It's just it's I think everyone outside Ghost Galaxy agrees it's not the right way to do it.
I would just kind of build on that to say, folks, be be constructive, or
Absolutely.
I think it's very easy to I don't know get carried away with some of the things. To me, I mean, I know there are some folks there's some things that are bothering more folks more than others. Um, the the tournament structure thing is one where I feel like there's a lot of universal agreement, and is probably one that's not terribly I don't know, contentious on what some of the right next steps ought to be, or could be. And I mean, everyone's just kind of hoping to make it a better experience for all. And I don't know, yeah, it's interesting to me because I see what's happening with those events now. It feels clear to me that there is something to be addressed, uh, and it's unclear to me how what we have or what we're proposing scales to much larger events. Like I'm used to going to MTG events with over 1,024 players. I don't know how that works in a double elimination setting, and I would really love to believe that we're heading for a world where there's going to be a vault tour with over 1,024 players. But yeah, 9 rounds of Swiss is a very different beast than I don't know 16 rounds of double elimination or something or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it just like, and there's lots of the community's done a great job of offering constructive alternatives that still maintain the spirit of double elimination.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
there are solutions out there. So even the constructive feedback can just be like, hey, you know, I was really excited for organized play coming back for Keyforge, but given the, you know, what's happening with the tournament structures at organized play events, it's making me not want to come.
Yeah. The key
You can
is
just do
just
that.
don't be a jerk. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Don't be belligerent. Don't be rude. Don't attack any of the specific people.
Yep. Well, all right. We got off topic quite a bit right there. Um,
got on a soapbox.
Yeah.
That's
So
what a platform is for.
there we go.
I'm
We
all
gotta take advantage of it while we're here.
Hmm.
Um, Murph, you have a deck picked out for adaptive? Best of one?
Adapt to best of one. You sure you don't want to play WoW? I can bring my savior deck. Quick draw.
I am sure. I'm very sure. Yes.
we
Okay.
could throw
All right.
trash
Yeah, we
man
can
at
play.
him.
We can play.
JT,
A,
do you have a preference on hand or brain? I have a deck in mind that we're gonna play, and I will tell you that you have played it before.
Is there a cool Maverick in it?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
no cool Mavericks.
Well, we'll see then. I guess you should be the brain if it's your deck, right?
Uh,
Oh
might as
man.
well it might as well be your deck, but I'll be the brain. Yeah.
I had. This is so frustrating. I just realized the SAS update really changes everything. Just like looking through decks, of like I'm so used to seeing where decks exist.
If I know the deck well, let me be the brain because it'll be interesting to get some of the cross ideas going back and forth there, and
Okay.
you know,
All
the
right.
like critique.
I actually think you might have played more games with this than me.
Oh, oh wait, does it have a cool anomaly?
It does. Do you want to be the brain?
Sure, it'll be fun.
All
It'll
right.
be fun.
Okay. I'm gonna start up a game for you,
Oh,
Murph.
I made a game.
Or
Oops.
you made a game. Uh,
Murph made
did you
a
do beginner?
show hands
It's
to
in beginner, yeah.
spectator.
Oh, excellent.
And show hands to players is on.
Show hands to players. Okay, great.
Is it adaptive?
Oh god, that was so loud in my ears.
Murph, did you make an adaptive game?
Yeah, is it adaptive?
Oh no, this is sorry. I thought we were playing best of three for some reason.
Oh no, we have a bedtime over here, Murph.
Yeah. I
JT and
do
I,
too. It was just habit.
we're old. We need to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm. This will be a sloppy game. It'll be on brand.
Yeah. There we go. This
Okay,
Nice.
is adaptive best of one. It should pop up.
okay. And hands are open.
Hands are open.
All right. So this is a really fun one. Um, I've had a teammate comment about this deck before, saying that they think this deck is impossible to play optimally, and I don't think they're wrong. It's a Worlds Collide, so it kind of leans into that data point we had of like most people of Worlds Collide possibly being the best adaptive set based on the numbers. This one is in particular super weird. Um, JT's played it a decent number of games. I've struggled to win games with it, period. But it's a lot of fun. Um,
I've got
so
6 games with
you're
it. 6 games
playing
with
Dark
it.
Tidings,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
true to form, double Hydro Cat, Mechabui, Science, Bouncing Deathquark, Library card. Very nice. A lot of artifacts. Um, double
9 if
Seeker
you
Needle,
to save you some counting.
excellent. Trickle Down, Frigorific Rod, no Whirlpool. So you're missing out. Sorry to
I
see
can't
that.
have everything. I can't have everything.
Triple bubbles. Okay. So what I do when I look at an adaptive best of one is I'm going to go through here. First of all, who's bidding, the brain or the hand, JT?
Brain, I think, right?
Oof, good question.
I think the brain should.
It makes more sense for the brain too.
So I'm
Probably.
gonna I'm gonna kind of talk through what I look at, and then I'm not gonna give any numbers or hints. I'm gonna let JT kind of take some of my notes and then give the bid on that. If that's all right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I try to go through here and I try to see how many amber pips there are first of all, just to have an understanding. Is like, is this something that's gonna burst out of hand or needs a board? And I am seeing four in logos. I'm seeing looks like two in shadows, so only six, and then three in unfathomable, so nine. However, there are some fake pips in here, so there's only nine pips, but there's two sea urchins.
Mm-hmm.
There is a science, and there's an information exchange. Info exchange maybe not gonna. The science maybe not gonna get anything because only three actions there. Um, so I would probably like estimate this one around 11 pips if I'm guessing. Um, does have some bounce. I look at creature control, so it's
Mm-hmm.
got the booby trap. It's got some ping with secret needles. It's got a bouncing death quark. So I'm guessing this is fairly low in the C category, but it's got some creatures like Flame Gill Enforcer and Bubbles that can help out a bit there as well if they need to fight. Um, Tide Control, since this is DT, I see we have two Hydro Catalogers, and we have a Trickle Down Theory. We have a Seabringer, Kikoa, and I think that's it for Tide Raisers in here. So not many Tide Raisers, but it's got two Hydra Catalogers and a Mechabui. So I can already see where you're going with this one, Murph. Um, and then Amber Control is probably the last thing I want to look at. Like, what do I have for Amber Control? There's an Info Exchange, which can just take off one, maybe two. There is an Eddy, but not a ton of other archiving unless I'm playing the Hydro Cats. Questionable. Some Sea Urchins, which is great. Hobnobber if it survives. Um, and Flame Gill, but I don't generally count that because that almost never does any Amber Control in my experience. So not a ton of Amber Control. Um, Moderate number of pips, a lot of artifacts. All right, JT, I'll leave the hard part to you.
Oh, so re-choosing which deck to bid on?
Yeah, Murph, when you choose the deck, let us know when you have it locked in, and I will choose based on what the brain thinks.
I'm locked in.
So that was really nice. That was really nice detailed analysis. Quick draw. I just want to play the Time Quake.
So you're going to bid on the Guardian?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
And we have two bids on the Guardian. So starts with me at 0. So Murph
Yeah.
is going to go the first.
I bid one chain.
How bad do you want to play that Time Quake?
I'll throw 2 in there.
Three for Murph. Insta call. Mind games
What?
begin.
Mind games begin. I think adaptive best of one bid chain bidding as well is such an interesting is really fun because there's no prior information. So it's not like oh we both played a game, we both have a read on the decks. It's like
Yeah.
oh man, now it is like did you see something that I didn't? More so than an adaptive best of three.
It very much favors deck evaluation skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost my World Cup match, unfortunately. Even though I definitely won the bidding because I was against Hydro and I took their deck and they took mine.
I remember them talking
But
about that match.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll go 4. I'll go 4.
All right, Murph, do you want to play the Time Quake more than JT? That's the question.
You know what? Timequake's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I'm gonna pass here though.
Okay, so JT got you. He talked about it earlier in the show.
Long pause
He
got
does
him.
he got the long pause to make you think that it was close,
Uh-huh.
but it's not.
Oh no.
No, this is my number beforehand.
Nice. Okay, I like it. I was
Yeah.
going higher. I was definitely going higher.
Uh, Interesting because I was definitely bidding on Murph's deck if it worked to
Wow.
me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I think I
Yeah.
would have gone to 6, maybe 7. Yeah.
All right.
And if I
looks
lose,
like
it's variance at play. So let's do it.
we get to go first. And so once I get my hand of 6 here, since I have chains to shed, you can let me know if you would like to mulligan this or not.
Let's keep. Let's keep.
Keep that hand. All right.
Keep that hand.
And you got a
Let's
house
see.
for me.
Oh, too funny. I could really be setting you up to troll me. That would be funny.
Always great. Always the ideal situation to be in hand to brain.
I'm gonna go Brobnar.
Okay. And we'll go with a Shattered Throne.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Shed another chain. Love it.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, the Mechabui comes down. Wow. Cool. 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 We're gonna go logos. We're
All
gonna go
right,
logos.
let's get this party started.
Party
I'm
time.
gonna play a Tau Vapors to draw a few cards, which is excellent. Archive this one here, which I think JT you can see what I archive. Is that correct?
I can. I can.
Okay, excellent. We are going to play the Positron Bolt, kill the Eddy, play another Positron Bolt to kill the EGAD, um,
Value.
and I think I will play the Eddy. And this is where maybe JT's gonna, you know, give me some critiques and feedback here. I'm gonna archive that one, and I am going to play the Time Quake, and it paid off because
Easy.
I just
Easy game.
just
Come
drew
on.
drew the Zenzi. Chains don't matter anymore.
All right.
What do you think about that?
Love it. Love it. I would have been tempted. I would have been tempted to archive the time quake, but I think playing it was right. I think playing it was right. Yeah.
Yeah, in my plays with this deck, I've not been as successful as you have been, but I generally try to archive all of my Brobnar and purge the Brobnar or the Dis. Um, Sometimes I am successful with that, other times not.
I totally forgot Booby Trap does not work when it's one creature on the field because it's technically on both flanks and in the and
It is
on
not.
Ah,
a flank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oops.
Not, that is not on a flank. It is on a flank. Um.
That was
Yeah.
not the best turn in that case.
We'll go Brobnar. We'll go Brobnar.
okay. Going Brobnar here. Do who chooses the archives, me or you?
You.
Uh, I will not take the archives.
Yeah, 'cause I think that's a game action.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's play the flamethrower, the blood money on your Willa.
What did my
Um,
will ever do to you?
he existed.
That will.
Let's just play the overrun for a pip. And tough call here.
I think the better question is when is overrun not a pip? When is it not just a pip?
Uh, Not in this deck. It is always just a pip in this deck. This is the easy call. I am discarding NARP. And then,
That's a mistake. You're gonna regret that later.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we'll see.
Already regrets.
Been a while since I have played this deck, so let's see what else I have here. Um, I'm gonna, hmm. All right, I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna play the freaking volcano. All right, check at 7. I don't know if I like that.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Hell
Would you
unfathomable
would you
here.
have played the volcano or would you have discarded it?
I think I would have probably discarded it. But it's a tough call. And then, did you consider taking the tide for the Mecha Buoy?
Briefly, but I think it's too early, and with the chains, I didn't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Fair. Fair.
Please take
Not
the
at that
chains.
not at that point. Um, so you had a excellent hit on the Greater Oxted.
I did, yeah. I'm very happy
That
about
is
that.
a fantastic hit in this matchup
Wow.
or this
So
deck.
mad. So mad. Love that
Yeah.
That Oxtet.
I was
Um,
a little cheesed by how much logos there was, and to had that much Brobnar, but I
Uh,
accept that's the fate.
no.
yeah. Well, JT, I know you're gonna choose the yellow key, right?
Red key, please. Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir.
Red key makes you go faster.
Yep. Yep.
It also makes your insurance cost more.
Ooh, this is tough. This is tough. Is it though? Let's go logos.
Yeah, I think so too.
You're gonna fight my heart, Sign.
Fight, fight, fight.
Negative. I am going to play an Igor.
Cool. Igor comes down.
Ooh, you can't see these, can you, JT?
I can't, but it's on you anyway. So I
It's
just
on
get to.
me. I've just would. Well, you'll see whenever I discard. Um, think that's a fairly easy choice for me.
Igor discards Buzzle and Festering Touch. Okay, interesting. Okay, cool. I see the keep. Yeah.
Yep. Big fan of that keep.
And on
Yeah.
another note, Zoc has started streaming, so if you want to raid Zoc at the end of the
Yeah.
evening.
Very cool.
We'll do that. Um,
Okay, so what to archive? I think that should be an easy one. And then I am going to reap. And do I want to raise here? You're not in check for a key, so I don't
Yeah, you're taxing.
think I'm going to raise here. So I'm just going to end it right there.
Is there only one he dies or two in this deck? There's one, right? Yeah,
There is.
there's
I have
one.
to
You just
check.
redrew it.
Yeah, I time clicked the first one.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't hate. I don't hate the Buzzle. I think you kept the right card, but I do like
Yeah,
Buzzle here too.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Ooh, BDQ comes down. Cool.
Very nice.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool. Cool. Another easy one, I think. Let's go. Let's go Dis here.
All right, we're gonna go Dis. Let's see what he's got. Let's see what I've got. Okay. All right. I'm gonna take the archives. I think I've got a plan here. Um, let's start with a Gleeful Mayhem,
I like it.
just to get rid of the Phyla.
I like it.
Mm.
We are going to play. Oops, I just messed up the ordering. Awesome. I'm gonna try to cancel that prompt right there if I can.
I don't think you can. Not on a creature play. We can try it though.
I am
Oftentimes
going
it makes you
to.
select a. It makes you select a. I guess if you. I won't look at your discard. Oh, okay, perfect.
I'm gonna. Hmm. I tried to discard it, but it
But
still is prompting me.
yeah, once you've played a creature, it's gonna prompt you which flank, and you have to complete that.
Okay. All right.
So
So
I
I'm
won't
just.
look. I'm not gonna look at your purge. If you want to
You
just
can.
like.
I'm gonna play everything. I just got to move him back to hand.
Yeah, yeah. I won't look though.
It is just 3 disc creatures. I'm purging the rest of my Brobnar. Um,
There we go.
and then I think I can
Well, it's
turn
a
mana
lot of
off.
Brobnar that got purged. I'm surprised on that one.
That's
Mm-hmm.
the point. And then this time I am going to play the Infernus. And I'm going to purge, I believe, mine.
Yeah, I've only got one pip.
I'm going for the pips here. Let's do the Overrun and a Festering Touch.
Yeah, that's the ones I thought you'd take.
And I am going to raise the tide.
Okay, rookie mistake.
Rookie mistake indeed. And pass the turn.
Okay, cool. And nice. I like it.
Yeah?
I like it.
Do you approve except for that manual mode requirement?
Yeah. I guess yeah. We stopped the key, which was nice. I might have been tempted to allow the key and take another take NARP or something. Um, Maybe I may have also been tempted to let Lesser Oxtet purge Lilithal and Malazan, but I think if you want to take the tide, it makes more sense to put the dudes on board. So that's cool.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I like it. Look at that purge.
I'll let Murph go before I talk about some of my logic there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking of this turn.
Yeah, and I mean we've seen Booby Trap and Bouncing Death Quark already.
Yep.
So the board might be just good. Yeah.
Okay. Shoulder Rid, Jackie Tar, Seeker Needle, Raise the Tide.
Cool. Wowza.
He's still at 5, so he didn't check me.
Sneaky check.
No, I didn't check you.
Sneaky check. I like this. I like this too.
I'm not
still.
legally obliged to declare that.
Yeah. Lawyers will not enforce it.
Did I catch a call in there?
I think I still like this here. Let's go this.
Okay. Go dis. I will not take the archive. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did. So just to talk through last turn, I wanted to keep the Lesser Octet with all of the discs because I did not want him to forge.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be able to tax if they did go up to 7, 8 with Mechabui.
Yep.
So that's what the Lesser Octet was trying to do for me. I would have gone Logos here, though, just to get that discombobulator out. So now I got to figure out what you're looking for me to do here without that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Oxets are such cool cards.
Really cool. Really cool.
Interesting. I don't know what the plan is here. Just to reap out, I guess. Well, I'm going to reap with the Oxid for sure.
Hmm.
I think there's not a ton reason not to fight with Malison, but I don't know.
He puts me on check.
It does not, though, because Malison will make you capture one from your own side after you steal one.
That's fair.
And the Lilithal is still around to capture as well.
That's true.
I'm not sure here. I think I'm just gonna reap. And I think oof, this is a tough one, JT. I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how you wanted this turn to go. I'm gonna discard the 3 fates. And I'm not gonna raise. I don't know about that turn. What do you think?
Let's see. We drew into okay. Yeah, I don't hate that turn. I don't hate that turn.
So you're going for the reap out.
Going for the reap out. Yeah, I think you could have made
Yeah.
a case for fighting. I don't think it was necessary to fight there.
I think it was just kind of an even sum, and I would have deferred the Amber gain.
Yep. So I think that was good.
So the Oxid is gone now.
Yep.
I really, like I said, I would have loved to have gone Logos there since he wasn't threatening check and playing the Discombobulator, which creates the threat. Like they have to get rid of the Discombobulator, otherwise I can easily fight into the Shoulder Id. I turn off the Sea Urchin. So that's probably what I would have gone for. Murph, you just burst to 9, letting me forge for 6.
That is correct.
Yep.
And I assume you want the blue one now?
Blue key now.
Yellow key is the worst.
I disagree.
That's the beauty of art.
Okay, so we've got those two and draw that one. Interesting.
I'm not sure if you can see what's left of my deck.
Yeah,
They cannot.
But I know it's coming. I know it's coming. I mean, we're gonna get I think we do have to go into. I think we do have to go into logos now. So let's do that. Let's do logos.
Okay.
Yeah, may have been better.
Well-
Maybe better than the previous turn. I was honestly expecting a rain of bubbles to come down, and was hoping that would happen before the discombobulator got played.
I see. I don't want him reaping out with shadows here,
Mm-hmm.
so I am gonna fight off the sea urchin.
And that's cool. That's a cool play.
Play the
I dig it.
play the disco on the Infernus.
I like that. I like it.
All right. Got one left in deck, one chain left. Did not raise there. Didn't really think about it. Maybe I could have, but probably not.
Mm-hmm. And it's a logos card in deck.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. He's up to 7.
7, huh?
Casual 7.
A casual.
I am legally
7.
supposed to declare check there.
TCO does it for you. You're off the hook.
Yeah.
Oof, tricky. The last go. Let's go dis.
Okay. Was afraid of that. Only because I need to figure out what to do with this. This is why this deck's so hard for me. I'm not sure what the right play is here. I will take the archive. I don't think I care about hide, but maybe I should.
Don't say that where they can hear that.
No, I think I am going to keep hide around. I am going to play the spider on the left.
Where's the buzzle?
I am going to reap with the Lilithal. All right, let's start to chew up with the buzzle. Get rid of the Lilithal. Oh man. I don't know what to do here. Genuinely have no idea. Can't quite get to where I want to be. Let's take you off 1. So I'll fight with the Malison. And then I don't know if this is right or not, but I want the pip, so I'm just gonna 3 fates and archive the hide and vellum. And I am gonna raise the tide here because I can't really afford to let you get the free Mechabuis.
Yeah,
I don't know there. I don't know. I wasn't sure if I should have fought with the Malison, if I should have just not bothered, if I should have just taken out the 3 big disc creatures with the 3 fates.
Yeah. I have to look back at your battle line because I had in mind reap out with the 5 power disc creatures play Three Fates, and then Buzzle comes down for it was either another Reap or fighting off the Jack Guitar. So more or less the same turn, except you end with uh, you end with the Buzzle. But then they're +1 Amber because of the Malazan. I think I'll have to look back on it. But I had playing the Three Fates earlier in mind.
So reaping with the 2 disc creatures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. Interesting here. I think we gotta go Dis.
Okay. It's probably where I was leaning. Not take the archive. Gleeful Mayhem, 3 Fates, and might as well take the tide again. Don't love that draw.
Don't love that draw. Let's see where they go here. It's about time to see some bubbles.
Yeah, probably about time. Not too many pips in Unfathomable.
Hey, here they come.
I was really hoping you'd play some creatures.
The Army of Bubbles. Illusions.
Ooh, illusions. Oh no.
Could be a game ender.
That could be a game ender. Oof. Oof. Okay. Okay. Yeah, well, I guess we should go Dis.
I think you.
I think we do that.
I think we I think we do. I think we do.
Then kind of unfortunate, but I think I only have the only choice I have here is to take the archive and raise the tide. And go with the 3 Fates.
Mm-hmm.
And the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So let's see if you can take me off. You have probably a sea urchin. You have an Eddie's gone.
Eddie's gone. A sea urchin is gone. There's another one coming.
I like the sound of Murph's voice right now.
Info exchange is gone. Let's see the sea urchin. It's okay. We're gonna draw into Eddie with our logo straw. Mm-hmm.
We may not need to.
You will not need to.
Oh baby.
Don't quite have it.
ABC.
Wow.
Always be checking.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
Yep.
Murph, you had the right colony illusions. I happened to archive my second 3 Fates with the Hydra cataloger.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just need you to
that was
not
the
have any
difference.
dis after like playing a bajillion dis.
I was drawing into 2/2/1s. Was not thrilled with it. It just happened to be like the one correct card. If I could continue playing for 1 second, I want to see if my Tau Tau can draw into an out here for me. And it did not. So,
Interesting.
if you had the Sea Urchin, you had the game. I had no Amber Control in my hand, or with the Tau Tau, so pretty
Interesting.
close one.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
chain bid was probably correct then. I think you guys. It was pretty close.
Yeah. I think it has a pretty hot start too with all the logos, and then end up all the dis plus the lesser Oxtet.
Yep. Yeah.
Although hitting the greater Oxtet was a pretty banger discard.
It was.
So.
That guy was going to get pretty big. He was going to clean out my hand.
Yeah.
I ended up being stuck with Brobnar for a bit until I found the other Oxtet. So.
Yeah. But no, that was actually really close. That was a hair's breadth away from going either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, a fun one. A fun one for sure.
And this is now, I don't know what Sassier deck is.
It is now a 65.
Yeah, this one's a 58.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
So This would be in that 7 SAS range, 7 SAS Delta.
In that sweet spot. In that sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I looking back, I think I like that going logos that one turn instead of dis.
Yeah, I think if you had played that Discombobulator, it would have been pretty brutal. I did have a Bubbles in hand,
Okay.
Hmm.
Hmm.
so
I think you went back to Shadows anyway, and you would have killed whatever it was that had the discombobulator with the Jackie Tar.
that's
But
correct. Yeah.
I would have put the discombobulator on the creature that I least cared about, probably at that time the Igor.
Mm-hmm.
So at least if you're killing the Igor, you're not killing what was it that you ended up killing that next turn? Probably one of the disc creatures, probably the Oxtet.
Did I have both? Um, you would have had to put. I think I had both Sig Needles out though, so you would have had to put it on something bigger.
Okay. Well, I probably wouldn't have then. I probably would have missed that.
Yeah.
But I mean, then it makes you chew up your Seeger Needles on the same creature.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I'm not spreading out too much damage in this deck.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
the Guardian really loves to utilize the Oxtets, so discarding the one was big, killing the other one
Mm-hmm.
immediately was big. Um,
Yeah.
I've had games where I my archive like almost all my Brobnar, archive or purge all the Brobnar.
Yeah. Yeah.
JT, you've probably had similar games
Mm-hmm.
when you were playing this one for a bit.
Yep. Archive or purge all the Brobnar. Work on the dis as well. Everything except the pips and removal. And yeah, I can go into the god mode of time quakes. It's really fun. Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
you gone into the God mode before?
I mean I've had a couple games where it got to that point between Tau Tau's and between the Tau Tau and the Time Quake and having purged or archived pretty much all except for the logos creatures and
Yeah,
actions. Yeah, it can get there. So pretty cool.
that's pretty cool.
Buzzle's huge, huge. You just kind of manage your battle line so that you can chew through it um, and not redraw too much.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
it's a weird one.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
weird one. It's a weird one.
Uh,
I feel like I've had
And
games
that
where
is
I've played.
a jank DT. I do enjoy.
that's
So
cool.
you said how many
Triple
artifacts?
doubles is cool. Oh,
It is called the 9 artifacts too.
9, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the Guardian, if I did not play in it, but if I would have chosen to sign up for the NKFL Max 12E deck,
Ah.
I would have played this one. It's one of my only ones that has Max 12E.
Mm-hmm.
Easily the most fun one.
Yeah, that is fun. It's a cool for I appreciate the cups that they have such odd restrictions.
Yep. Yep.
It's cool.
Yeah, some weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It encourages entropy, as they say. As they say.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely.
As they say. Cool. Well,
I think
why
I
don't
don't
we?
have I have 15 decks that have less than 12E, and some of them are. One of them is kind of gross.
I don't think I have many in that range. I was gonna say, why don't we hit rate up Mr. Zoc?
Let's do that.
Could be fun. Yeah, so we'll send folks on over there. Thanks everybody for hanging out.
Yeah.
Enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
tonight, and
Thanks for the game, Murph.
Yeah, of
appreciate it.
course. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for letting me guest, and thank you.
Our
Thank you for
pleasure.
doing the data analysis. Really appreciate that.
I want to take my time to dig into it further, get like pretty it up a lot of the stuff that I'm looking for, and hopefully create some consistency season to season so we can kind of look at how this stuff changes.
Yeah, I'm also going to try and collate some of the data into an article.
Nice. I
So
like it.
get some of the charts, and sort of like meaningful tables sort of into a place where it's accessible outside of video and podcast form.
Huh? Is there a SAS cap as well on the cup?
No.
I don't think so.
Funny. Delegate Eriga coming in at 12E. Neat. I think Jacques, the deck that just won the uh, Archon U.S. Nationals, is also yeah 12 expected amber.
Oh wow, really?
That's
Yes.
hilarious. That's hilarious.
So that's funny.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's why I don't put much stock in those kind
The
of formats.
I posted. Yeah, I mean they're just fun to like have a different thing. I posted mine Didier Lejeune. It's a French AOA deck, but that is a premium 12E 9.4, I think is what's E.
Oof, 9.4. A sub 10 for the flex. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out I have 35 decks that would qualify for this, but the Guardian is
Wait,
the only one that I'm remotely interested in.
how many do you have, JT?
I have 96
I have
decks.
12.
Yeah,
96, okay.
Oh,
96.
actually,
That's
I have a Whirlpool deck that would be fun.
They're
Whirlpool
not,
and Feroctor.
not excellent.
there we go. I've only opened one Whirlpool deck in Winds of Exchange so far.
I've opened 0, but I have lots of friends that have hooked me up.
Man, I have some.
I haven't played.
very
I
cool
actually have.
decks
I
with
have
Whirlpool.
played this one
Or,
yet.
well,
So
Whirlpool.
if it's not tickling my fancy quick draw, maybe I can send it over your way.
Well, I appreciate that. Everyone knows where to send their Whirlpool decks that they get tired of.
I was about to search for it on DOK, but I realized I only have 2 decks uploaded there because I'm just not using Dex Keyforge for WoW right now.
Hmm.
I will say the 2 decks I have opened. One was a sealed deck I opened last night in my locals. The other one is my Savior Keyforge deck, 85 and 83 respectively.
Wow. Well,
So,
you are. I
Um,
assume
I have
you're kind of curating what you put into DOK, so you're probably picking the ones that are.
no, I'm just not picking. I'm not putting any decks. The people at my locals were interested with the STATs,
Okay.
so
So yeah, I mean,
that's
makes
what
sense.
that's what yeah that's why I put into that one. And but otherwise no, I'm just not using DOK. I'm enjoying exploring a new set for the first time because like I sort of
Yeah.
came in like DT was already a thing, SAS was already a thing for all those things. So like um yeah, just sort of been taking my time with the set and exploring it and enjoying it without any numbers associated with them.
Pretty
oh,
cool.
oh, right
Yeah.
on.
Giving a casual narping to each of them.
Casual narping. I like that. It sounds like a nice romance novel or something.
Sounds like smut.
That, yeah, yeah. Take to each their own. All right, off to Zoc stream we go, everybody.
Let's do it.
Thanks for hanging
All
out.
right.
See you around the lab.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys.
Now is there gonna be like a 10-9-8? Oop, no, no.
There
Yeah.
will be a 1098 on your end. You can sort of once there's a countdown and then you can trigger it whenever you like.
Awkward. The awkward goodbye. Hey, we're still here.
Yeah, it's not actually leaving yet because people get the option to not go over to the next stream.
Ah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Is that what the leave button does?
Yeah. If you hit leave, you won't go to the next stream.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And fun fact, when it raids, your stream still goes.
Yep. So we're still here.
I definitely have not realized that at one point.
Indeed. All right. Heading this one off too. Going off the air.